Is there, we were talking about this idea of committing. Have there been instances where like either you as a producer or you as a musician, there's less time in the studio and that like, has that happened to you guys?
Well, yeah, and then that's based on, you know what, like we were talking about, that's my original, like my whole thing when doing all those Victory records and doing a lot of stuff back I come from the indie world where there wasn't huge budgets. I mean, I've made records, I've made major label records with, 6-figure budgets, and that's all fine and good, and it's great, and you go to nice studios sometimes, and, they're catered, and it's wonderful, but, it doesn't make it better, and to me, sometimes the immediacy of making all those really fast punk records that I did, you have 5 days to make a record, you have 7 days to make a record, 2 weeks was like, oh my God, that's a luxury. At one point, it was like, wow, we have 2 whole weeks. What are we gonna do for 2 weeks? That's too much time, And yeah, that you had to commit and you had to not overthink it back then. You literally, it's like, even sometimes with the punch-ins and getting things tight, it's like, I listen and it's like, you don't get so tight, but it's like, it's tight enough and it sounds good. What does it make you feel like? You know what I mean? And it's about listening. It's not about looking. And I love the aspect of tape with that, because too many people look and don't listen. They look at a screen and they go, oh, it's not tight. It's tight or it's not tight. And it's like, what does it sound like? What does it feel like?
Yeah, look at the transients.
Yeah, they're looking at like lining up with the kick drum and it's like, no, wrong. And it's like, it forced you to commit when you had no time. That was it. It's like, good. Is that good? Yeah, good. Next, move on. All right, well, it's good.
And time management's an important thing for a producer too.
Yeah.
That's part of the job, like figuring out kind of, all right, we need to commit, we need to move on. I'd rather spend more time in the mixing, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I literally just finished this punk band. They're called Hightower from Paris. They came over from Paris to work with me, and they're very much in like the old school vein of like some of the bands that they're very influenced by a lot of the bands that I've produced back, like Lifetime and Kid Dynamite back in the 90s. And we did that record, we tracked it in 16 days, and they weren't even, honestly, we could have tracked it in 10, 9, because they were it was almost like lax days, because they were, I'm not saying that you're all Europeans, but they're very European about their approach. They don't want to work a 12-hour day. They want to work like a 6-hour day. No, honestly, and I don't mean offense to anybody watching from Europe. But it's definitely more of a philosophy. And in a way, it's good, because sometimes the more time you have, the more time you use. And you can tend to overthink it, and I've done it. I've been guilty of it. We've all been guilty of it. You overthink things sometimes, and the immediacy of having no time forces you to just go, okay, good, next, and not think about it too much.
Okay. So I guess second part of my question then would be, Ben, for you, are there any things like on the first couple of Dillinger records or those EPs that you would have changed? Like you hear that maybe, and I want to go back and I wish I could have gone back and did something different on Calculating Infinity or.
That's a really good question. When I listen to them now, I think it's so sloppy. I can't believe like we let that stuff go. I'm like, oh my God, like the 2 guitars don't even sound like they're hitting at the same time.
But at the time we were doing it, it sounded, we were like, wow, that's so tight. We thought it was super tight.
Yeah, and everyone else did too.
And everybody else did, right.
Got criticized for it being too tight, Right. But I remember at the time I just wanted it to sound like the record I loved, and being disappointed that, we didn't spend enough time on the bass tone, it doesn't sound like Pantera, or it didn't sound, and at the end of the day, so many people reference that record as the one with the least time that has its own sound. Like, it sounds like Calculating Infinity sounds like Calculating Infinity. It sounds like, and that's what I talk about, like, it's not important, there's no right or wrong way, like he says, you're not trying to make it sound like somebody else, it's just, is it good, does it work, is it right as a whole, and so I think, closer to listening to the record, when we first did it, I probably had a million things I wanted to change. But looking back, I see the value in the fact that it is its thing, and it has its thing, and it is a piece of time, and it's special. So I think obviously I would like, things I messed up or something, I would like to do better, but to answer your question, I guess overall, I think as more time goes by, I see the value in it having its own thing, and it is good the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I go through even like sometimes, because I used to always like check things on my iPod. So like when I'm at like the gym or whatever, I have like a lot of records and mixes I've done. Like I'll put it on random shuffle play, and the mix will come on that I did, like 10 years ago or whatever. And it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm so into like the music I produce that I'm listening to it, but it'll come on, and then I'll just be like, oh, let me listen to it, and then I'll be like, oh man, I should have done this. I should have, like I could have gotten a better guitar sound. I could have done the mix. Oh man, that mix doesn't sound good. Like you always, maybe I'm never satisfied, but then as a whole, stepping back from it, it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people who are into this stuff, like
I think
the
any
record's
artist
done when you run out of money. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like that's your answer.
Yeah, no, but I think as any type of artist or any creative thing, you're always gonna, because you're constantly refining. You don't want to rest on your laurels, and you don't want to become too comfortable, because that's the death of creativity. So it's like you're always gonna think about things that you want to change and do, and maybe try for the next time. So yeah.
You mentioned you've been working together for 18 years, I think. Ben, was there any period in that time where the band started working with other producers and kind of had this moment of realization that we should really go back to Steve? Is there like a story of trying the grass on the other side and then coming back?
It almost didn't. Which record was it?
Well, the Patent EP you mixed.
The Patent EP I didn't record. I only mixed. That's the only thing besides the cover EP that you did on your
that I did on my own.
That was the only thing that we hadn't worked together on.
Sometimes it's just a matter of means. Like it
was a scheduling thing.
He moved to California, so we did it locally, and then we still brought him in to put his touch on it, because we consider him his part of our sound. But again, like I don't know, man. At this point, I've learned so much from working with him that I know there's certain things that I want out of our records that he brings to the table, and I know there's certain things that sometimes doing little EPs or whatever, like we just put out a 7-inch, just a tour-only single that we put out that I just recorded at home, and sounds different, it's a different thing, but it's a combination of just of a lot of things, of like, just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think one of our big concerns for us is that we've had so many member changes in our bands. Almost every record's had somebody missing or some change, or we've had 3 different drummers, and we've probably had about 14 member changes in our band. I'm the only original member in the band that was on those early records, so it's almost like, well, Steve knows what Dillinger is and should be more than almost anybody. So it's nice to have another constant or someone who gets it in the mix when we're going through all these changes, trying different styles, experimenting.
Well,
it's good to have that checks and balances.
Well, it's also like, people ask me a lot of times, a lot of bands ask me about working with Dillinger, and they go, well, how do you even follow the music? How do you understand it? And it's like, because their music is like a language all its own almost, and I was there from the genesis of the language.
Yeah.
I was there when the language was being made, basically. So I speak the language.
It really is. Yeah, and when we have new members, we have to teach them the language. And once they speak the language, they can contribute in a different way. But
there's also the challenge, of working so long and not being too comfortable. I'm always trying to, like the last record that we did together, it really took a lot out of me because it was challenging.
I love throwing things at him that he's like, because everybody usually looks at our music like it's just a bunch of garbage cans sitting on a wall, except him. But when I can make him be like, wait,
what?
I gotta figure this out. Wait,
No,
I know
but
we're still pushing things. So that's nice.
We still the challenges of working this long together is still finding ways to really
take out of our comfort zone.
Take us out, not getting too comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I could very easily fall back onto we could fall back to the same guitar head that we use. We could fall back to the same. Oh, I have mic settings from the last record, and it's like, no. But again, which goes to what I'm talking about. You can have that same thing, but even on different days, the same exact guitar setup, tube amp setup, microphone setup, because of literally changes in humidity, it'll sound different, and you have to adjust. So you can't just, everybody looks for the magic formula. There is no magic formula.
Yeah, but there's a comfort level. So I think once you trust someone and you're comfortable with someone, then you really can get unsafe. And that's with everything. I always talk about that with music business stuff too. Like when you want people to believe when people believe what you do and they care about what you're doing, they know that you're coming from the heart, then they trust you and then they feel comfortable with you, and then you can take it out of the safety. You can we can stamp on people's heads and they leave with a black eye smiling and ask me to sign it. You know what I mean? Because they trust us. You know what I mean? And that's the same with when we trust each other, when we're working together, and I know he's got my back and he knows I'm going to push him at this point as far as he needs to go and even farther, so that the next band comes in and be like, what did you do with that Dillinger record differently? Then we can get really playful, and that's where creativity comes, when you're not afraid to take risks. So I guess that kind of rapport we have and that relationship we've built enables us to take more risks and feel comfortable with it.
Exactly.
So what happens, I'm curious, what happens when you have diametrically opposed ideas about like what you want the sound from? I mean,
That's exactly
who
what
wins,
happens.
right?
Yeah,
We fight.
We fight, but it's never a bad thing. But honestly, it's always, as a producer, my philosophy, I will make suggestions and go, I feel strongly about this, but ultimately, no matter what, it's not my record. It's his record. It's the band's record. Okay. And it's like, they can just tell me, screw you, like, because, no, because it's true. But I will, maybe I get more personal with the Dillinger stuff because we've been doing it so long, like we talked about, but it's still ultimately, his vision, his music. I'm trying to serve what he does. Just as I make the guitar player serve the song, I'm trying to serve the record as a whole.
Yeah, I think as you just get older, emotional, I think we all just get better at having emotional intelligence.
Right,
and it's it's just maturity, and so
putting
and that's
ego
hard
aside,
for an artist. It's
putting
hard
ego aside
for a
is
creative
very
person.
hard.
So it's like once you get confident in yourself and what you bring to the table, and then what you're not good at, and what you do need to have someone just tell you. Once you start to learn that after years and years of doing this,
not getting
that helps.
not getting a bruised ego when somebody tells you you're wrong.
Yeah,
It's a big thing because
it's hard.
It's hard, especially on my side of things, because I'm so used to like telling the band, like, no, do it again, do it again, do it again, no. And it's like when they tell me do it again, like when he tells me about like the mix, it's like, nope, wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean wrong? But then I step back and I go, wait a minute. I tell him wrong all the time. It doesn't matter, like it's what's the goal? What's the end goal here? What are we trying to do?
And we have that luxury. I have that luxury of having. He was the best man at my wedding, So like most people when they go to a producer of Steve's level are very, just like, whatever you say, I'm glad, I'm a fan of you,
Right,
So,
and then I tell him, like, no, tell me, you
So
want to tell me to go screw, I don't care.
That's another thing I learned. That's
record.
another thing I learned working with Patton, who doesn't care about anybody except the end product. Like he doesn't care about anyone's feelings.
Right.
It has to be right.
The end product is
that's the other thing, like the producer's working for you. At the end of the day, they're working for you, It has to be, you have to leave happy. You have to leave happy.
Mm-hmm.
But
I find that like I said, some guys who are very in that world of, they only have a set way of doing things, and they say, oh, well, use, this guitar amp, or use this amp sim, or use whatever, and it's like, I feel like they're making it about themselves as opposed to really listening to the artist and what does the artist need, because, and it's a part of that I think is derived from fear and the producer not getting out of their comfort zone, because, I have these, these things that I know work, so let's be safe and let's stick with that. And it's like, don't do that. Like, don't be afraid to be wrong.
Yeah, I love that idea that comfort is the death of creativity.
Yeah, it's
that's
true.
Great.
It's very true.
Great.
I've had records where it's like very very perfect example. It's like I don't want to name the band, but I did one record of theirs and it was like a very influential record, and then the next record we had a bigger budget and we spent twice as long on the record. And I feel like I can feel that comfort in the record. Honestly, I can really feel it. I feel like there's not that that thing that you get from that I love, that I'm always like chasing the dragon. You're always chasing that that thing, you know.
Fear also can ruin creativity too, because
absolutely.
To me, creativity is just the ability to be playful and like a kid. You know, we lose that as we start to get fans. When you don't have fans, when we first started, we had no fans, so we had nothing to lose. And then as people start to have expectations, what it's supposed to be like, how it should sound, then you start to get scared and you start to be careful, and then you lose creativity because like a kid will just throw paint everywhere and be like, cool, look at that little shape in there, you know. And to me, like, that's what we do a lot of, and it's about that's part of the comfort level we have with each other.
Well, but based on that, like exactly, like to me, like a big hurdle on my side of things psychologically is like, oh man, how are we going to top that last record? How are we going to do it? You know, like. And you know, thinking about like all the fans and thinking about people who are looking up and looking forward to this release, it's like, wow, this is going to be, you know, great. And like just the same thing, like the record I just finished with the metal band Suicide Silence. We did their last record; it was pretty successful, and then we made the new one. Unfortunately, their singer passed away, and then we made the new one with the new singer. And it's going to come out in a couple of months, and I think it's amazing. I think it's better than the previous record, and there's no disrespect to the old singer. You know, they're both great singers, but you know, the psychology of it for me of like trying to not let people down and not let like, oh man, there's knowing all the weight of all the expectation that's on there. And you know, getting past that and just getting back to like Ben said, that almost like childlike instinct of just like, this is cool, and throwing it out to the world and going, this is great. I think this is awesome. We think this is awesome, and that's how, again, that philosophy filters down into getting the guitar sound. It's like, just awesome. That sounds great.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.